So welcome to the evening program here at Bhaktivedanta Manor. It was so beautiful to come earlier on to hear the sacred holy names of Shri Krishna being chanted by one and every one of us here. The brahmacharis at the temple have come together to make a very generous offering to the assembly and the various pilgrims at this temple by arranging various discourses which can ultimately help us to remain focused at the feet of God and also fulfill a very ancient tradition. That ancient tradition of the doors of God being open for many, many thousands of years in the temples of India. And that tradition consists of, and that tradition consists of the devotees of a particular temple coming to repeat the very same words of the presiding deity. And while doing so, various pilgrims, it is stated in history, that every single one of them would then somehow or another get to hear from the very person who they have come to worship and pray to. And therefore this tradition is being followed in this temple. And therefore for the next 45 minutes, we'll be discussing this very particular topic called steadiness and determination in yoga. And I'll be sharing various words from the Bhagavad Gita. And more importantly, the topics, the series which we are following at the moment in the evening programs and lunchtime programs are from the series of discourses by Srila Prabhupada in the book The Path of Perfection. And today we shall be discussing steadiness and determination in yoga. So firstly, if I can request for you here, seated here, please raise your hands if you follow some type of yoga at home. Please raise your hands if for those who follow some type of yoga. Okay, so a majority of yourselves here. So the very first question is steadiness and determination. Now, the word determination in Sanskrit has a very deep philosophical meaning. The word determination is translated as sankalpa. Now, the word sang can refer to all, everything, as well as a congregation. And the word kalpa refers to not only a human form of a year, but a kalpa refers to a cosmic cycle. So the word determination in Sanskrit is where you make a determination for eternity. Sometimes determination can be, I'm determined to give up smoking. I'm determined to sit with my legs crossed for half an hour while hearing kirtan. But in Sanskrit, the word determination is very, very deep. Sankalpa. That vow that one takes for eternity. Life after life. That is how serious devotees of Krishna take the word determination. And steadiness. Steadiness, the example of steadiness is none other than Arjun in the Bhagavad Gita. You find that Arjun was on the path of yoga. And while on the path of yoga, Arjun was forced or compelled by the environment around him and by circumstance coming from his family, close friends, and close loved ones. And such people, unfortunately, were trying to take Arjun's mind off the practice of yoga. And got to a point, sometimes in our own lives, we have small little wars we may fight within ourselves, or maybe the next door neighbor, or like we said, maybe a family member. But Arjun's war internally manifested in the battlefield of Kurukshetra. And Arjun's challenge in life was to remain determined in yoga while physically being challenged in a way which hopefully none of us will ever get to experience in our lifetime. And that was the battlefield of Kurukshetra. And therefore Arjun is a very, very good example for a person to remain, how one remains steady in yoga. The word yoga in Sanskrit refers to linking with God. In English we have the word yoke, to yoke something together. So the word yoga means connecting with God in a very direct way. Now, steadiness and determination in yoga can only come when one is performing a practice of yoga which will give transcendental happiness, perfection, and also the ability to award the ultimate goal of life, which goes beyond perfection. It goes beyond happiness. And sometimes various persons may be engaged in a particular type of yoga and find it very difficult to be determined, very difficult to be steadfast or even steady. And mainly you find, the Srimad Bhagavatam explains, it is because the type of yoga which is being practiced is not compatible with the surroundings around us. Let us give one very, very common example. When the word yoga is generally mentioned, the first thought which comes to my mind, and I'm sure the minds of every one of you here, is a sage in a very beautiful green lush forest, seated like yourselves, underneath a tree, with nobody around. No mobile phones, no text messages, no emails, no alarm clocks. Probably no one to cook or feed or serve. No gossiping, no newspapers. So generally that's what comes to mind when you say the word yoga. Now, if you project this conception of yoga in the present day, how is it possible? Is it possible for you to live in a secluded, lush, evergreen garden or forest with no disturbance? If it was possible, then your steadiness and determination in yoga will definitely yield results. It will definitely be perfect. Probably be free from obstacles. But that type of yoga, even if one tries to practice, you may go into your house, lock the doors, turn the phones off, mobile band. You know, the sign, out of office. But nevertheless, because of the environment around us, the various colors on the wall, maybe the TV, so many different objects around, it will be very difficult to focus your mind on that type of yoga known as Ashtanga yoga or yoga of meditation. Because there are so many distractions. So therefore, steadiness and perfection and determination in that type of yoga is practically impossible from a very realistic perspective. So that type of yoga should be practiced which is compatible with the current age, which allows one to keep their mobile phone on, which allows one to wear non-devotional clothing even, which allows one to not change one's bodily identification or even one's spiritual practice. A type of yoga which allows a person to go to work, earn money, have a family. But please note, this type of yoga must not in any shape or form be less than any other type of yoga. That is the type of yoga wherein you can practice determination, when one can be steadfast and steady. Now, this type of yoga comes to mind many, many different examples. Is it the worship of the deity? Is it serving? Is it charity? Is it doing good for others? So many types of thoughts one may have when one tries to imagine a form of yoga which is compatible with the current age, which allows you to have, like we said, family, allows you to have a general life. Now, Lord Shri Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, he repeatedly explains to Arjuna on how he is very much up to date and in contact with the world around us. And mainly because Krishna Bhagavan, he created this world. Aham sarvasya prabhavo. Because from Shri Krishna himself, this world was created. Therefore, Krishna is constantly in touch with his creation. And therefore, age after age, Lord Shri Krishna, he appears himself to provide a particular type of yoga wherein one can happily live a so-called normal life or a life of the general modern age, while at the same time achieve the ultimate perfection. And therefore the Srimad Bhagavatam discusses the form of God appearing as a devotee of God. Now the question asked is, why does God in this particular age have to appear as his own devotee? Because in this age you'll find that people like to follow. If people now like to wear red or high heels or a particular type of dhoti or a sari or a particular type of haircut, then you find in this age other people just follow without questioning. In this age that we are living in, people like to have an example. People like to see somebody practice what they are being asked to do. And therefore Lord Shri Krishna, knowing, projecting his sacred mind into the future, knowing what people's mentality will be like, Krishna varnam tvisa Krishnam sango pangashta parshadam. Vyasadeva, the writer of the Srimad Bhagavatam, explains that Lord Shri Krishna will appear in the form of his very own devotee. Can you imagine the state that we are living in? That amongst us, God personally appears to deliver us, to give us an example by appearing as his very own devotee. And we have a beautiful painting of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Lord Shri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who appeared in this very world amongst us as Shri Krishna, but in the form of his devotee, to show by example how one can practice the most compatible and the most appropriate type of yoga in the modern age. Now, this chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, it is not just a particular type of bhajan that followers of Krishna like to chant. But this Hare Krishna Maha Mantra is the ultimate form of yoga, or the best way to connect with God in such a way that Lord Shri Krishna, he personally has the ability to manifest his divine form in front of that chanter. That is the power of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Now, the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, we can see nowadays being chanted by so many various types of people and pilgrims at the temple. But this Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, it is such a secret mantra. This Hare Krishna Maha Mantra was so secret that a point in time, you find that no human person, even no incarnation of Shri Krishna, ever recited this name. It was such a secret. This Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, its origin is in Goloka Vrindavan itself. And you find that the personality who is engaged in the chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra is Shri Krishna's internal energy herself, who is manifested here before us in the form of Shri Radha. Shri Radha is the internal energy of Shri Krishna Bhagavan. The Upanishads explain in the very same way that one's form and one's existence depends upon Rakta, which is none other than blood. Similarly, Shri Krishna, he depends upon Srimati Radhika. Because Radharani, she is the energy of God. Now, within the various incarnations of Shri Krishna Bhagavan and the various pastimes of Shri Krishna, it is explained in the Srimad Bhagavatam and the various Puranas, and most importantly the Yajurveda, that God appears in various qualities to manifest particular types of pastimes and also reveal himself in certain ways. So you find that Shri Krishna appeared as Lord Ram, Ramadi Murti Shukalani Manatishtan. Shri Krishna Bhagavan appeared as Vishnu. He appears as so many demigods in this world, Devi and Devatas. And each of these manifestations of Shri Krishna, they all have particular qualities which they manifest in this world in various pastimes. But Lord Shri Krishna, the quality that Shri Krishna himself possesses is the most highest expression of a devotee and God practicing and experiencing transcendental love. In other words, prema bhakti. And this prema bhakti, the embodiment of the most highest type of love, is practiced by Sri Krishna's internal energy, Srimati Radha. And in the Yajurveda it is discussed that when the embodiment of Krishna Prem, the most highest type of bliss possible in the entire spiritual and material world, when that Sri Radhika is in union with Sri Krishna, and again coming to the word of yoga, because yoga means union, when Sri Radha is connected with Sri Krishna and enjoying very specific transcendental pastimes, that union, that is called the topmost yoga. Now, if you can imagine, where the most intimate form of Godhead, Sri Krishna, is now associating with his internal energy, Sri Radha. So, two now become one. At that point, when these two personalities have now come together, now please remember that these two personalities cannot be replicated by any avatar. Not Brahma, not Vishnu, not Ram, not Lakshmi, not Rukmani, not Satyabhama, no devotee, no acharya. No personality can ever come in between these two personalities when they are having this most highest type of expression that even Krishna himself cannot describe. So what to speak of this class? When the union of Godhead, Sri Krishna, Rasaraj, comes in contact with Sri Radha, his internal energy, that most highest form of devotional service, having unified, when that once again separates, once that once again comes apart, at that point, to re-attract Rasaraj Shri Krishna Bhagwan to Srimati Radhika, Shri Radha Rani recites the sacred Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And when Shri Radhika, in this Vipralamba Seva, in this most loving form of separation, when Shri Radha wants to once again connect with Shri Krishna Bhagwan, come together, in our terms, devotee and God, then Shri Radha takes shelter of the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Baldev Vidyabhushan, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur have written commentaries on this specific particular origin of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Now you can imagine in your own lives, let us just put that concept to one side. Whatever you enjoy in this world, whether it's gulab jamun, whether it's kheer, whether it's friendship or children, you know, when you experience that, and when you don't have to separate, your love increases, that anxiety to come back together again in union increases. Let me have just one more gulab jamun, just another taste of kheer, or my friend or my guru. So that is the great ecstasy between Radha and Krishna. At that point, once they have unified, and now they want to re-attract themselves by chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Now, this is the type of yoga and the origin of yoga that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu brought to this world. So therefore, the Hare Krishna Mahamantra is just not a particular type of yoga. It is the most compatible form of yoga in this modern age, and even in the spiritual kingdom of God. When one transpasses all the various manifestations of God, all the various avatars of God, all the various devotees and the various consorts of Sri Krishna Bhagwan, when one arrives, at least philosophically from text, at that Goloka Vrindavan stage, where in the center of Vrindavan Dham, Sri Krishna Bhagwan and Srimati Radhika alone, at that point is the origin of the Mahamantra and the practice of the Mahamantra. Can you imagine how high and supreme this chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra is? Now this Hare Krishna Mahamantra being confidential, one great rishi called Pipalad Rishi, he is one of the Shrotakars of the Atharva Ved. And his father, Lord Brahma, was approached by Pipalad Rishi. And Pipalad Rishi actually asked this question. He said that what is the most highest form of yoga in Kali Yuga? And when Lord Brahma began his answer in the Atharva Ved, Lord Brahma started to describe the fact that mantra guyaha paramo bhakti vedyaha, that this Hare Krishna Mahamantra is so supreme and confidential that it can only be understood by a person who is following in the footsteps of Shri Radha. In other words, from our perception, following in the footsteps of a devotee, a pure devotee. And when Pippalada Rishi encouraged Lord Brahma to reveal more and more, because Lord Brahma was one of the very first disciples of Shri Krishna Bhagawan, having been initiated by Shri Krishna Bhagawan's flute, for that sound vibration, having been initiated personally, Pippalada Rishi, the son of Lord Brahma, encouraged Lord Brahma to reveal more. And then Lord Brahma began to describe a very sacred golden form of Shri Shri, Radha and Krishna. And while describing it, he explains, Navadvip Akhya Dhamni, Dvibojo Gauraha, Sarva Atma Mahapurusha Mahatma Mahayogi. That a personality of a golden color, who is the merged form of Shri, Radha and Krishna. At that point, when Radha and Krishna came together, at that point when they merged together, manifested the form of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And because at that point the Mahamantra originated, therefore, only Shri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had the ability to bring this most sacred practice of yoga, this most highest and the most supreme form of connection with God to this world. And therefore, as this verse expresses, in West Bengal Navadvip Dham in the year 1486 AD, Shri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally manifested amongst us. And he bestowed that what no other incarnation, even Shri Krishna himself, what no other personality of Godhead ever contemplated to even bestow. The chanting of this most sacred and most powerful Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Now the Bhagavatam explains, Manda Samanda Matyo Manda Bhagya Upadrita, that in the age of Kali Yuga, which we have been practicing, which we have been experiencing for the past mid 5,000 years, it is very difficult to practice any other type of yoga. And in fact, if a person tries to perform various other types of yoga processes that were, most importantly, and factually practiced and followed and even prescribed for the previous ages, it would be very difficult, practically impossible, to remain determined and to remain steady because of all of the obstacles that one has, as this verse in the Bhagavatam explains. People are naturally, by nature, slightly lazy. And they have so many other types of activities and chores to do on a day-to-day basis. You have to go to work. You have to eat at a particular time. You have to answer to your husband and wife and your parents and your children. And therefore, having understood the mentality of this age and how difficult it will be for any person to achieve even a slight peace of mind, even a very slight peace of mind, therefore, the supreme doctor, the Maha Vaidya, the Maha Ayurveda Vaidya is Dhanvantari, who manifests from Lord Shri Krishna. The most supreme doctor of the age of Kali Yuga, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he gave, out of his many types of prescriptions, the most powerful medicine to remove every type of obstacle, to remove every type of misconception of life, of the world around us, to allow us to see the truth as it is. This medicine, the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, the supreme doctor in the form of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu bestowed to this world. And this Hare Krishna Mahamantra, being the most powerful medicine for the practice of yoga in Kali Yuga, Mahaprabhu made this medicine even more relaxed, because he is the Ishtadev of the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Therefore, he decided that in Kali Yuga especially, Niyamita smarnena kalaha. There shall be no rules and regulations. You can be anywhere, in any situation, pure or impure. You may be awake, half awake, or sleeping. It does not matter. You may be at work, walking to work, in the shower, seated. No matter, it does not matter. This Mahamantra will have the very same effect. That is how munificent and how merciful Lord Shri Krishna is to us in this age of Kali Yuga. And let's look at it practically. So many people, and probably people here today within this assembly, we have come from so many types of various differing backgrounds, probably a complete wide spectrum of eating habits, or we can say illegal eating habits, so many types of unwanted personalities may have been within us before we came to the shelter of God, Shri Krishna, and we can see around us practically on how this chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra is so powerful that it has the ability to transform a person from imperfect to perfect, from material to spiritual, from living a life of sorrow and misery to being happy and blissful. And Swami Prabhupada, he brought this Mahamantra and he flooded the entire world because he wanted to make sure that any person who takes birth in this planet, wherein the two lotus feet of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is smeared with, he wanted to make sure that generations after generations, after even Prabhupada's appearance, that every living entity in this planet should have the opportunity to relish the most highest form of yoga. And practically to this day, we have hundreds and thousands of people coming from all walks of life. It does not matter whether one's Indian or Chinese or black or white. So many people are coming and completely transforming their entire life simply by chanting this Hare Krishna Mahamantra. And while chanting this Hare Krishna Mahamantra, you'll find that most of the verses of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita come to life. Because the Bhagavad Gita was spoken on the battlefield of Kurukshetra towards the end of the Dwapar Yuga. In fact, some astronomers even go to the point to describe on how Kali Yuga actually had already crept in, because of the various qualities manifested in the age. Sometimes there is Yuga Sandhi, wherein two ages overlap. And it happens many, many times. And one of the most interesting stories in the Puranas is when the age of Kali and Dwapar overlap, there shall be a Saptahani, a flood for 7 days. And in that flood for 7 days, Shri Krishna Bhagavan will send one of his confidential companions, known in the Puranas as Maharaj Nuha, who will build a boat, and on that boat would take one species of every living entity. Does it ring a bell? Noah's Ark? So you find a very similar description in the Puranas too. And this took place during the Yuga Sandhi. And during this Yuga Sandhi, you'll find that even religions around the world, all of them have something to do, have some similarity with the ancient wisdom of Shri Krishna Bhagavan, the revelations of the Vedas. And therefore in the Bhagavad Gita, most of the points that Shri Krishna Bhagavan expresses to Arjuna is for actually every single one of us here today. Krishna Bhagavan explains, Vahamyam, that he will personally carry to us whatever we lack in this world. There is the most beautiful story in the Puranas of a very, very pure, simple, poor Brahmana who, while reading this verse in the Bhagavad Gita, Vahamyam, that Krishna carries to his devotee what he lacks, this Brahmana, being so poor and distraught materially, he crossed out this word in the Bhagavad Gita. He said, no, this doesn't make sense. If Krishna carries to you what you lack, then why am I in this particular situation of misery? So this Brahmana, he put a line through this word, the Bhagavad Gita, Vahamyam. So this Brahmana, after deleting this word of the Bhagavad Gita, now obviously no one here should try doing that at home. You won't have a good experience if you tried crossing out, even for your emotional state, a line of the Bhagavad Gita. But this Brahmana then went away to do his sandhya at the banks of the sacred Ganga and the Yamuna, where the confluence is. And while away, suddenly two boys appeared at the home of this Brahmana. And this Brahmana's wife, the Srimati Brahmani, opened the door and she saw two very beautiful young boys. And she was wondering, because normally at that time, when young boys who are of the brahmachari age come to one's door, they come with the mantra, Bhavati Bhiksham Dehi, which means, Mother, please give me some alms. I live in the temple. I have no income. I'm just worshipping God. Please give me some alms. But instead, these two boys, when they came to the house of this Brahmani, the Brahmani was, because by nature she was very compassionate, she wanted to perform her duties well by giving alms to two students of God. But just before coming to that confusion of mind, these two children immediately said to this Brahmani, before you think otherwise, rather than receive some alms, I have come as a delivery. I have come to deliver you some food and some rubies and some type of foodstuffs which your husband has asked us to deliver. And she was wondering, but my husband is a pauper. How can it be possible for him to arrange such a large delivery of items? And she was thinking maybe he went to some type of yajna and the Yajaman didn't give £11, £101, £501, but the Yajaman gave hundreds of millions of pounds to my husband. Maybe it's possible sometimes, maybe it's not possible. So therefore this Brahmani said, okay, fine, you can leave whatever it is. And these two boys just brought in bags and bags of food and drinks and items of clothing and everything that one can require for life. And very quickly these two boys just left without even saying bye-bye. The Brahmani was sitting at home thinking, right, I'm a bit spoiled for choice here. What do I cook? I have every type of food present here. What shall I do? At that point, her husband came home, the Brahmana. When the Brahmana came home, the Brahmana said, what is this? Who came and gave you all this? She said, I was just about to ask you the very same question. Apparently, you had arranged all of these items to come home. He said, no, I just went to the Ganga, done some meditation, and that was it. And in between, I met nobody, I had no exchanges, I certainly had no ceremonies to do. There was nobody around. This Brahmani became completely confused. And then this Brahmana said, describe these boys. Describe to me these two boys who came home with all of these deliveries of food. And she said, well, they were very beautiful. One was a bit bluish. One was quite white. One had a peacock feather. Anything else? They were hardly wearing any clothes, just a very simple yellow dhoti. Anything else? Yes, I remember something very, very particular. As they were leaving, I tried to stop them from leaving, at least to say thank you, dhanyosmi. And while I left the home to just try to call these two boys back to thank them, I noticed that on their backs, they were lashed with red marks, as if somebody had beaten them, as if somebody had scratched them, as if somebody had hurt these two boys. But who can hurt these two boys? So beautiful young children carrying all of this. They were dragging it with their toes, with their fingers, with their ears. They were just bringing it somehow or another to home. And this Brahmana, he was very intelligent. He began to think, this does not add up. Two boys, blue, white, dhoti, no top, red marks on their back, peacock feather. Does not sound like a normal boy, does it? And then he turned to his Bhagavad Gita and he saw that the word, because he had his bookmark on that very particular verse, Vahamyam, I carry to you what you lack. He saw that those marks which he had scribed on this word had removed. And it occurred to him that those marks that the Brahmana, those marks of doubt which the Brahmana had in his heart and which he projected on the sacred Bhagavad Gita, Krishna Bhagavan personally took those marks and placed it on his back. and to prove to this Brahmana and a sacred message to all of us here today that Krishna indeed does carry to us what we lack in life. He personally came, manifested himself, and delivered every doubt that this Brahmana ever had. The Brahmana and Brahmani came together. He explained his story. His wife told him off. Can you imagine? Because of you, look what you put God through. And then they wept together. They chanted the names of God. And they went out preaching this particular verse for the rest of their lives. That trust me and have faith that God always carries to you what you lack in life. And this chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra is also our type of doubt. It is our manifestation of surrender. Surrender to the will of God. Surrender to this powerful message that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, standing in the middle of these, of the other four personalities beside him, his associates, brought to this world. And this Mahamantra, the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, while reciting it very, very easily, one develops the spiritual energies inherent in the soul. One's introspection becomes clearer. The reality of life becomes more visible. That inner voice starts to speak to you. It starts to tell you what is right and what is wrong in every aspect of your life. This Mahamantra, once chanted by a particular, by any person, this Mahamantra personally awakens, as the Yajurved, the Mahanarayana Upanishad explains, personally awakens that personality that resides in the core of our heart as in the form of the Paramatma. The Paramatma is the manifestation of God in the form of every living entity's hearts. And Daharam vipapam parameshma bhutai yat pundarikam puramadya sagamstam. The Mahanarayana Upanishad explains that a very beautiful person with lotus-petaled eyes, pundarikaksha, is ever awaiting within our hearts to reawaken, so that he may direct the wandering living entity's mind, soul, and objectives in life. And this Mahamantra goes to the core of one's heart. Not only does it completely transform the living entity, but it puts the living entity in touch with God, who is in the heart of every single one of us. Sometimes, we say the word on how whatever is dear to one's heart is the object of one's life. But Krishna, or God, He is always in one's heart. And therefore He's permanently taken His position in the hearts of every living entity. And wherever temporarily one may replace the seat of the heart with somebody else or some other object, God always remains. And in the end, Krishna, in the beginning Krishna was the Lord of one's heart, and in the end He remains the Lord of one's heart. The difference is, when do we want to utilize the presence of God? Can you imagine, just for a moment, just take a few moments to meditate and contemplate on this very point, that God, the person that millions and billions of people have tried to understand, have tried to contemplate, have tried to work out, does He exist? Does He not exist? Where is He? Who is He? What is His name? What is He? Does He eat? Does He walk? Does He fly? What does He do? The Bhagavad Gita explains that very person, He's in your heart. Ishvara sarabhutanam hrideshe Arjuna tishtati. O Arjuna, I reside in the heart of every living entity. And this very principle of God residing in the heart of every person, a devotee of Krishna, he takes this principle so seriously that he treats every other person than himself as a manifestation of God. Which is why when students of the Brahmachari age, when they used to enter into the sacred Gurukul system of knowledge, wherein they'll be trained in the various sciences of Indian philosophy, one of the very first principles, Matra Deva Bhava, Pitra Deva Bhava, Acharya Deva Bhava, Atiti Deva Bhava, that consider your mother and father and the guest and your neighbor and the Guru as a manifestation of God. Because the essence of everybody's life, the soul, within that very region of the heart beside the soul is God. But this point, even though being very simple and probably can resolve all of the types of racism, all the types of discrimination, all the types of hierarchy that we may have in this world, all of this principle may be very, very easy to hear and even understand. To practice, it is most difficult. Try to practice this with those you hate, which is the principle of Jesus Christ. Really try to practice this with those you hate. Because even the scriptures say this. Even the scriptures say, that Ramayana explains, Valmiki Muni explains, that even if an enemy comes into one's home, the householder, the grihastha, which is 99.9% of us here, apart from one, the householder has to welcome even an enemy into one's home as a representative of God. That is the test that every one of us have as a family person. For brahmacharis and sannyasis, this rule does not apply. It applies for grihasthas. But how do we really come to put this principle of equality, of universal equality into practice? It can only be done when one chants the names of Krishna. Because when one chants the names of God, then, like we explained earlier, these very simple principles become easy to follow. So you'll find that the chanting of the Mahamantra not only benefits one spiritually, but even materially. And because this has a dual effect, your life in totality will be successful, doubtlessly, materially and spiritually. That is the gift that Lord Shri Krishna gave to every single one of us in the form of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and which Srila Prabhupada has promoted through this society of ISKCON. And today here, we've come together here to be recipients of this most beautiful message of God. And now at 7 o'clock, we have the opportunity to first and foremost glorify Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by singing his praises in the form of the Gaura Arati. The Gaura Arati we have scripted over here, just above here. In this Arati, it is written in Bengali, and this Arati propitiates and honors that most magnificent form of Shri Krishna who gave the holy name to us. And for those maybe who later on would like to read about Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and particularly this song, there are translations available in the songbook, which is on sale in the reception area just to my right. And you'll read in this translation on how Lord Brahma, Shiva, Shuka, Narada, the various manifestations of God in this world, all come together to worship Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the very same way that we are going to do so in the next 5 minutes. Not Indian timing 5 minutes, real 5 minutes. And in the Gaura Arati, once the Gaura Arati has completed, and I certainly encourage every single one of you here that please do follow along, sing along as loud as you can during the Arati. The louder one sings, the louder our inner voice penetrates the core of our heart. And after the Gaura Arati, then the devotees will lead us, all of us here, in the chanting of this most esoteric Hare Krishna Mahamantra, which we have all discussed and heard today. The manifestation of the most highest form of yoga in the most topmost planet of the spiritual world, with those personalities of Godhead that are the most intimate form of the Supreme Being, Shri Shri Radha and Krishna. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoy the Gaura Arati. And my best wishes to all of you here on your path of perfection in the system of yoga or Kirtan yoga with the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. The series of lectures we are giving, as I explained earlier, is from this book called The Path of Perfection. And it is available in the reception, again, to my right. Please feel free to take a copy, buy a copy if you wish to read more on this. Thank you very, very, very much. Hare Krishna.